Racing for the first time in a while can often be a shock to the system. Even if you've had great training during your base phase and your pre-competition phase, racing is just a whole different beast. Throughout training with tempo runs, speed work, even VO2 max work, there's likely no point where you're getting the combination of speed and intensity that a race does. When you're working at race pace, it's typically shorter distance. If you're doing anything that's similar to your race distance, it's probably going to be slower. So when you do go into a real race for the first time, your body can kind of have a panic response because this combination of time and intensity is something new. And it's a new stress that it has to deal with. And I've experienced this myself a few times recently. In September, I raced a 5K for the first time in a while. And I did feel pretty strong early on, but who doesn't? But at the end, I was kind of just hanging on and happy to maintain where I was. Breathing hard and the legs are feeling dead. There's a lot of fatigue, which is normal to an extent. But I didn't feel like I ran as fast as I was capable of. But it was just a one-off race, so that was kind of it. There was no follow-up to see how I would feel in another race like a week or two later. But then again, even more recently in January, I raced a mile for the first time in a while on the track. And it was a similar situation. And I got out at what felt like a pretty controlled, pretty reasonable pace, nothing crazy. But by the time I was about 600 meters in, I was just struggling. It feels overwhelming. I was moving fast, I was breathing really hard, and kind of just feeling like I was hanging on and not really doing anything more than that. And then a few hours later, I raced a 1K just to kind of get some speed in the legs, not really worried about how I was going to do, just some more racing experience, hopefully to help me out feel better the next weekend. And it seemed to work. The following weekend, I ran the mile again and kind of followed the same strategy of trying to run fairly evenly, not getting out stupid. So same strategy, same approach, but this time felt a lot more controlled. It was smooth and it was in control. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't breathing super hard. And then by the time I got to the last lap, I felt good enough to actually have a kick and pick it up a little bit and close my race a fair bit faster than I did the week before. And in total, ended up running 4 seconds faster and feeling like it was not as difficult. And that's a great feeling. You're running faster for seemingly less effort. That feeling was achieved by dealing with the body's panic response to racing. That's what the first week ended up doing. I run the mile in the 1,000 one week, and then the next weekend, that adaptation is there. And racing isn't so much of a shock to the system anymore. And that kind of idea of breaking your legs in, getting used to racing a little bit, seems like common sense, but for some reason I didn't think about it. It didn't cross my mind until I'd gone through it. I just assumed that first race was maybe not going to be the greatest, but I don't think it had to feel quite so bad. I think there are steps that can be taken to prepare yourself for those situations where you're coming back to racing for the first time in a while. If you look at professional athletes or elite college athletes, their coaches will often have them do some sort of big workout or time trial in the week or two leading up to either their first race back for a while or a big race. And the goal is to kind of simulate a race stimulus in the best way that you can in a workout setting. Creating some stress that the body can adapt to that makes racing more manageable for the body once you actually go and do it. For a race like the 5K, you might see some guys doing either very intense VO2 max type of workouts. There's a video of Nico Young running a hard 2K a week and a half before he broke the NCAA record for the 5K in Boston. Or more recently, we saw the workout with Grant Fisher where he's closing his workout in a 4 flat mile, a little before he runs his indoor season and breaks those world records. In my own experiences in college, we did quite a bit of time trialing, 1,200, 1,000, 800, and that's just preparing us to run a 5K. And with time trials, it's generally better to race under distance. A, because it's easier to recover from, and B, it gets your body used to running at a pace that's even faster than what your race is going to be. Like for me, a few weeks ago, racing the 1,000 one weekend before running the mile again the next weekend. Or if you're in high school or college, that might be why, like before you're racing a mile, your coach is having you run like 400s and 800s. And then if you look at Grant Fisher's indoor season, you'll see that with racing, it's the same way, where he started with the 15, 3K, 5K, working up in distance. It's all about getting that speed in your legs so that next race that you do that's longer isn't such a shock. But no matter what, it's important to realize that returning to racing can be uncomfortable, but it can be less uncomfortable with some proper preparation, getting your body adapted to that new high stress environment before you actually line up for a competition.